What's going on, traders? Hope everybody's having a great weekend. It is Sunday, June 4th, and we are getting prepped for the week ahead. Just before we get into it, of course, this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and we would really appreciate it if you could like the video. That helps out the channel a lot as far as the YouTube algorithm. If you aren't already subscribed, please do so, and don't forget to turn on that notification bell so you are alerted every time we post new updates about the markets and trading. So, with that being said, let's get into it. Okay, so markets were up again on Friday, continuation of the squeeze from Thursday. I thought, we would have a little bit of a slower day, a bit of a volatility compression. However, I was wrong, and there was nice follow through to the upside. What a run over the last 2 days here on the short squeeze. Markets were up 1.45%. Final print was 427.92, and we're looking at the daily chart here, and as you can see, excuse me, we have been watching this megaphone pattern, of course, and we finally broke out of it, right? And I think we did that actually a little bit earlier in the week. It was possibly Thursday, but we've broken out of it and now completely took care of that gap, and we closed above this key 425 area. So I'll be watching this trend line as well as we go into next week, is really a larger kind of pivot that the bulls are going to need to defend to continue this move higher. We are still sitting outside of value, though. Value area high here, at least on the 1 year, 1 day chart, is up by 416.61. As you can see right here. So we are still very extended from value, and that is something that I have been talking about as far as a cautionary note, and so I definitely want to keep an eye on that as well. A couple other things, the Momo, we're still just steadily moving up, not really showing any of that overbought signals yet, but keeping an eye as it gets higher into that area. If we take a look at the weekly, though, and we were mentioning this in the other videos, we are starting to get into that real hot area, and we're printing up in that 12 zone, but it can go higher. We've seen it as high as 13.5 before, and somewhere in that area. So let's see, this is 13.5. Yeah, so we're not quite there yet, at least on the weekly, but I want to see how that develops. You can see here, though, on the weekly, strong wicks buying up price, right? And here, at least as far as the weekly is concerned, did not completely, the whole body of the candle did not close outside of the megaphone pattern quite yet. Of course, it did on the daily, but want to watch out to see if they can actually get the weekly to confirm next week over this trend line, and that would certainly be an encouraging signal. But the daily, of course, has closed over, so we will be, keeping an eye there as well on the daily. But that weekly print definitely will be interesting. Let's look at the what kind of data we have for next week. Not really seeing too much. Maybe global services PMI on Monday, around 8:45. That is at least on my radar, but nothing too big. I don't really see anything else other than Thursday. We do have jobless claims at 7:30, so I am watching that as well. But other than that, as far as the data is concerned, looks pretty light, and not too many events that we have to worry about on that front. All right, so let's just take a quick look here at our other chart. Haven't adjusted these fib yet. I'm going to leave them for now. I do have fibs on another chart that we'll take a look at that I have adjusted to the new swing high. But here you can see a bit clearer the megaphone pattern and us having broken over, and pretty nice price action. And we went over this before when we did sell off and come down. Perfect retest of this consolidation base here, and then just rallied right off. Let's look at the daily trends though really quickly. Now when we look at it from this view, and let me get a little bit closer. So we're watching it here. Oh, just delete that for now. As we move closer, I've been watching these channels, right, as we've moved up along the way, and we're getting pretty close to this bigger channel. You can see some reaction, some reactions in here, although not as clean, but this is definitely an area, a broader channel that has been developing and holding, or at least seeing price reactions multiple times. And as we get up closer here, it could be an interesting direct short zone up in the 430s. Of course, though, with those trades, they are higher risk and smaller size with less expectations, and really the expectation is that you're going to get more than likely stopped out, but definitely want to pay attention as we get to the a little bit closer into this zone. One thing that I do want to mention though, and we are on a 6-hour chart here, so you can see the candles a little bit better, are these fake breakouts, right? And they can also stay a little bit longer than you might surmise in your mind. You can see here how we did break over this channel, we stayed there, and then big sell reaction down, right? Similar situation here back in the beginning of May, where we broke over this channel, kind of consolidate a little bit, and then big move down. So as the saying goes, from false moves come fast moves, and this is a great example of that. We had a fake breakout, and then boom, a really strong sell reaction down. Hung out here, couldn't hold, and then boom, a really big strong reaction down here. And it really kind of happened here as well, as we broke over this channel, rejected here, kind of distributed in price, boom, down. Same situation, broke over, didn't get quite as high this time, didn't make a higher high from here, but similar type of price action delivery, in where it couldn't hold. This sell reaction obviously wasn't as strong as these others, but yeah, you can certainly see the concept there playing itself out. All right, so let's go a little bit more in depth. We'll take a look at the fibs here that I have updated, and what I'm watching for. So we're watching this 428, 430 area. Personally, for me, the bulls are really going to have excuse me, have to get over this area for that continuation. And we were talking on Friday, I thought it would be a little bit more of a choppy day. We did get a continuation day, but now I'm going to be even more careful, as we've had quite the run up, and we've talked about those phases, those cycles in the market of consolidation, trend, right? So I am being very mindful of the switch in the cycle, so it could lead to trickier price action. So I'm going to be very careful on Monday. Not only Mondays are my least favorite day to trade, but on top of that, now we have a Monday after a trend day. So yeah, just be careful, and I will be playing more defense as well. And then we can see what happens after Monday. But risk reward for longs right now, unless you're trying a breakout trade, is very risky. But let's talk about some areas where I might be interested in some longs, some retracements that might need to take place, and then we can go from there. I certainly am, and we were talking about this before. Of course, this 23.6 could be an interesting direct buy on this base here. So it's around 422.84. It's quite a ways down, but it's just a certain area to definitely keep an eye on, in my opinion. And I'll also be kind of using it a little bit more as a bigger pivot as well, that if we do break back under, okay, I'll be looking for that sell side back down, possibly to the 30 the 38 too. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that as far as a broader perspective. We start getting under and staying under, I'll probably switch my short-term bias a little bit unless we recapture and look for lower prices, or us just to consolidate maybe in between these three fib retracements here. There is also the possibility that we just consolidate right here in between these two retracements as well. Certainly tradable. This is about what is this, 422 to 428. I mean, you've got about $6 and some change, something that you can mess with there. So, it's certainly, there is a range still to be played. So what are we looking for? At least what am I looking for? Some actionable things that I can do tomorrow potentially. And let's get a little bit deeper here in the price action, right? All right. So the main two things I'll be definitely watching are going to be these highs up in this 426, 425 area. If we come down in, that might work for a direct buy zone that I would potentially consider. We pull back in and come up and then come up higher. There is also the possibility, and let me just mark this here. If we're talking about volatility contraction, more of a range type of situation where we could just trade within this $2 range for a couple of days and then see if we distribute and then head lower, or if we are actually able to break over this level and then continue higher. We were talking about that 425 target to the long side. That obviously hit and then some, but really to really see the continuation, getting over this, holding it at least for a few hours, maybe coming back, retesting that liquidity, and if there is in fact inventory there to drive us higher, again, we'll be looking again for, 430, obviously is going to be the big number, but let me just get into my broader supply and demand here. I've got 429.45, but we'll call it 429.45 to 430. Really, that whole number is psychological, but those two little areas are definitely going to be what I'm watching. I wouldn't buy the breakout. More wait for it to come back up, see if we hold, chop around, come back and retest, and then we'll move higher. But ultimately, if we do start to confirm over this 430, 429.45, I'll be looking, and there might be some speed bumps along the way, but like I said, these are my wider supply and demand areas. So ultimately, if we do start to confirm, my main next target's going to be 435.25. We start to confirm over that, again, same type of situation. We start to, we get over, we hang out, maybe come back in and retest. Then I'm going to be looking for 439, and we might see a pop up to 440 and then a sharp sell reaction in that area. That's another potentiality as well. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for the long side. The key though is going to be that, as we said, this is much bigger, but the 422, of course, 80 that we were talking about earlier. But let's look at something. Let's look at a few other things. Okay. So I think for me, if we start to break, we saw the sell reaction here, and this is one of the direct longs I was, talking about considering. But if we start to break under, let me get in a little closer. Okay. If we start to break under, then I'll be probably looking for a bit more of a retracement. We might only come down into the opening price. I could see that happening real close to this 425 area, maybe 424.60 in that zone, with maybe a last defend at these Friday pre-market highs. But we really start to get under here. I'd probably be looking for more selling again, maybe down to the pre-market highs, or down rightly to the open. I could see that being a scenario as well, where I would also consider potentially another direct buy there. So, if this direct buy doesn't work, okay, maybe I'll be getting a little bit more short bias for a retracement, either down into Friday's pre-market highs or the opening price, where I might consider, again, another direct buy here. So you can see this area here in the 422, 422.90. Again, that lines up with our 23.6 retracement that we were looking at earlier, 422.50. We start to get under that. Okay, now we're starting to take out Thursday's highs. Now I'm really going to start to change my bias personally and be looking for further retracement down to these lower prices, maybe again into Thursday's pre-market highs. But under Thursday's highs, I would be watching for late longs to get trapped, and we would probably see a deeper retracement. But this 420 area, 419.30, you know, this could definitely be a short side target, and again, where I might consider a long trade direct to start to retrace and come back up into this area first, and then, you know, just level by level. But that's kind of what I'll be watching. You know, we could just trade in this range now, which is certainly tradable. I mean, from this high all the way down to here in the 419s, I mean, that's what, $10. So, you know, there's different areas of range that we could establish as we try to find balance now in the market and the auction. And you know, it's anybody's guess how wide it's going to be. So it could be this far, but you know, we could also, we could also see, come on. Oops, sorry about that. We could also see even a tighter range that only goes like this. So, you know, I'm going to be watching how you know, whatever range is established, how that starts to play out. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for potential distribution. If we cannot break higher, and then it might seem to me where we are going to retrace the longer we hang out and we don't actually break out. So we'll have to see, you know, how that develops. So yeah, this could be the range we're working with. Again, this is, you know, $6. That's totally something like that. You know, that's totally tradable, or coming down a little bit further down to here. So that's also, you know, what I'll be watching. Hopefully, you know, come on. Hopefully, you know, what would be kind of the worst situation, or at least the most tricky to trade, would be if we stay in a range like this, right? And that's about $3 or so. You know, it's tradable, but you know, it's not the best. And we, you know, probably not going to see any big moves, any pushes for higher areas of liquidity until they work out, you know, whatever balance we establish. But you know, over the next couple of days, if we do establish this range, then we'll know, you know, at least what the range is, and we'll know that once it is broken, we're likely to see some more volatility come into the market. But it seems to me now that, you know, we'll probably see that type of consolidation I was thinking that we would see on Friday. But we got a nice trend day, so that was, you know, I was happier with that. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to go over. The only other thing I think I wanted to mention that I am watching, at least, is, okay, a little bit of the divergence coming in on the volume. As I make it a bit wider here so everybody can see, we do have the highs here, right? And we are coming in, sloping down here. Prices are moving up, right? Volume is moving the opposite direction. So I think that's worth mentioning. Again, it's not something I'll totally make a trade on. Sometimes low vol, you know, people get really obsessed with, oh, this is a low volume pump and this and that, you know, and that has some efficacy, but, or that has some, you know, point to it. But sometimes low volume is the path of least resistance, and just because there's low volume alone does not mean that we cannot keep moving up and seeing higher prices. So we'll just have to look to see if the markets want to accept up here or not. But yeah, so Monday should be interesting, and let's establish that range, and then we can have a little bit more of an idea of what we might expect coming into the rest of the week. So I think that's about it. The only other thing maybe that I wanted to mention was VIX, right? VIX coming down. I think these are. VIX getting real low, and at least, we've seen quite the move, but ideally, at least for day traders, we want volatility in the markets because then we get wider ranges. But look at this compression here, all the way down just above 14. So we want to watch as we're getting into these areas, but certainly nothing concerning. It's not like we're overbought or oversold here or anything like that. On the Momo. Let me just see here because this is a 5-year chart. I don't think it's going to change. Yeah, no. But I want to watch this as well as we get down into these lower areas close to this 14. It certainly wouldn't surprise me to see, a green day after VIX has just been crushed for the last 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 sessions, to see this thing pop up, maybe form a bear flag type of situation, and then move down lower. And of course that would push markets higher. Futures are just right now opening up pretty much flat. They are up just barely green here. I would think that it's just going to kind of consolidate and hang out. But we'll see, we'll check in on that overnight. All right, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Again, I hope everybody has had a great weekend. Please make sure that you prepare, come up with your bear and bull plans. I think for the week, a prepped trader is a successful trader. So that way you, of course, are not just running around with your head cut off trying to find levels that you might trade or might not trade. At least, when you have your plan, you know your zones, you know how to react to price, and then you just obviously need to execute. So, yes, I hope you found this helpful, and if you have any other questions or anything like that, you can shoot them in the comments. And yeah, take care.